Welcome to this special edition of Behind the Crime Scene, a true crime podcast. I'm your host, Gina L. Osborne, retired FBI Assistant Special Agent in Charge and former Army counterintelligence agent. Today I want to share the story of Suzanne Morphew. She was the 49-year-old wife and mother of two from Chaffee County, Colorado, who went missing on Mother's Day in 2020. On May 5th, her husband, 52-year-old Barry Morphew, was arrested in connection with Suzanne's murder. This is a really interesting case to me, and I'll tell you why a little bit later. But now I want to share with you the facts of the case. So let's go back to May 10th, 2020. It's Mother's Day. According to Suzanne's brother, Andrew Moorhead, Suzanne and Barry Morphew's daughters, aged 17 and 23, they were on their way home from a church camp, and they tried to call Suzanne to wish her a happy Mother's Day. Barry had left early that morning to drive to Denver to work on some construction job that he had. So when the girls couldn't get a hold of their mother, they called Barry. And then Barry called his neighbor to check on Suzanne at their home. The neighbor did a check, saw Suzanne's car was in the garage, and then went back to their house, called Barry to tell him that the cars were in the garage. And then Barry specifically asked the neighbor to go back to the house to see if Suzanne's bike was there. The neighbor does this and reports that the bike is gone. Now, Suzanne's bike is found by a bridge not far from the house, and Suzanne is nowhere to be found. Law enforcement does a large grid search, and they use drones and they use dogs. The FBI and the Colorado Bureau of Investigation joined in the search, and they even had a dive team search a nearby lake for Suzanne's body. The sheriff's office maintained control of the Morphew residence for a total of 16 days. About a week after Suzanne goes missing, Barry posts this strange video on Facebook. He makes a plea for Suzanne's return, and he offers $200,000 for any information about her disappearance. But what's odd about this video is the words that Barry uses. He says, "Oh, Suzanne, if anyone is out there that can hear this, that has you, please, we'll do whatever it takes to bring you back. We love you. We miss you. The girls need you. No questions asked." The body language in the video is really interesting as well, because as he's saying all of these things, he's shaking his head in the negative the entire time throughout the video. Again, according to Suzanne's brother, Andrew, Barry told him about his theories of what he thought happened to Suzanne. So Barry first said that she could have fallen down the side of a ravine. Next, she could have been attacked by a wild animal. And lastly, she could have been taken by someone. Andrew said Barry is an experienced outdoorsman and hunter, so none of these theories made sense coming from him because there was no physical evidence to support any of Barry's theories. The place where the bike was found, Andrew said if Suzanne fell in that area, there would have been blood evidence for sure if she fell down the hill that he was talking about. And it was the same if she were torn to shreds by an animal. Even if there were a struggle, there would have been some sort of disruption to the physical area near where the bike was found. Although the Chaffee County Sheriff's Office is actively working the case, Andrew decided to get a host of volunteers along with cadaver dogs to do his own search not long after she went missing. Cadaver dogs are trained to search for human remains. During this search, the dogs hit on 3 different areas, and the areas in question were turned over to the FBI. The FBI has an evidence response team, so I would imagine that they took over the search to search the area and then process whatever evidence that they found that the cadaver dogs hit on. Andrew went on the Dr. Phil show and provided additional information relating to the timeline leading up to Suzanne going missing. So the day before she went missing, May 9th, 2020, Suzanne and Barry were seen in town having dinner at 4 p.m. At midnight, someone went onto Suzanne's Facebook account and friended several middle-aged men. Barry claimed he left for his construction job when he last saw Suzanne alive at 5 a.m. on Mother's Day, May 10th. However, Andrew had information that Barry had been texting and communicating with his employees on his way to Denver at 4 a.m. Andrew speculated that Suzanne was killed on May 9th between 4 p.m. and midnight, and the body was disposed of prior to 4 a.m. on May 10th. Not only did Barry refuse to take a polygraph test, Andrew said the electronic vehicle information on Barry's truck was inconsistent with what he told law enforcement. On May 10th, 2020, the day that Suzanne went missing, Barry checked into a hotel room, or he went to Denver to do a construction job, and it sounded like he was using that hotel room for a place to hold meetings with his employees. One of his employees later came forward, who had visited the hotel room, said that the hotel room reeked of chlorine and that there were several soaked towels on the floor. Barry's behavior after Suzanne went missing was noticeably suspicious to those he interacted with. In addition to the Facebook video, he was also interviewed on YouTube, at which time he blamed the sheriff's department for screwing up the investigation, and he also spoke about his theories in the we form, as if others believed in the bike collision or the mountain lion attack or someone taking her. From a law enforcement perspective, when a low-risk individual like Suzanne goes missing, it's really not unusual for someone from that person's inner circle to be involved, and so that's who law enforcement is going to be looking at. But imagine how you would feel and how you would act if someone you loved went missing. Would you be throwing out unrealistic theories or distancing yourself from what may have really happened? Or would you be inconsolable, wanting to do whatever it took to get law enforcement to get past you as a suspect so they can focus on locating your loved one? Why would Barry Morphew refuse to take a polygraph? That in and of itself, to me, is a big red flag. Other things that would interest me in all of this as an investigator is what Barry was doing prior to and after Suzanne went missing on his electronic devices. Who was he talking to? What was the midnight friending frenzy on Facebook all about? And who were those people that were being friended? What financial transactions were going on before and after Suzanne went missing? Barry bought a plot of land just weeks after Suzanne's disappearance, and he sold it many months later. He also wound up selling their home for $1.6 million. What did he do with that money? The investigation into Suzanne Morphew's disappearance took an entire year, and on May 5th, 2021, Barry Morphew was arrested at one of his construction job sites and charged with first-degree murder of his wife. Now, first-degree murder means the deliberate and premeditated killing of another human being with malice aforethought. That means law enforcement has evidence that he planned to kill Suzanne. What's really interesting about this is that Suzanne's body has never been recovered. However, the Chaffee County sheriff confirmed that Suzanne was deceased. During the press conference that they had when Barry Morphew was arrested, the sheriff also wouldn't comment on the cause of death. So in addition to first-degree murder, Barry was also charged with tampering with evidence and attempting to influence a public servant. The last charge means he's suspected of using deceit, threat of violence, or economic reprisal to influence a public servant. And all three of these charges were for offenses that took place on May 10th, 2020, the day that Suzanne disappeared. This was a massive investigation. According to the sheriff, 70 investigators from federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies worked on the case. 135 search warrants were conducted. I'm assuming that included search warrants for electronic devices, bank accounts, phone records, in addition to physical locations. 400 people were interviewed, and 1,400 tips came in through a designated hotline. The fact that they've charged first-degree murder without a body means they must have a really solid case against Barry Morphew. The arrest affidavit is sealed, so when that's unsealed, I'm sure we'll find out more about the evidence law enforcement gathered on Mr. Morphew. On May 6, 2021, Morphew had his first court appearance, and I'd expect him to be held without bail. Based on Barry Morphew's arrogant behavior over the last year, I would expect him not to plead guilty, so stay tuned for a fascinating trial. I'll keep you posted as things progress, and I'll see you next time on Behind the Crime Scene.
Behind the Crime Scene with Gina Osborne is produced and edited by Lisa Osborne. Theme music is Insomnia by retired IRS Special Agent Clarissa Balmaceda. Find us on social media through BehindTheCrimeScene.com. And don't miss an episode. Subscribe to Behind the Crime Scene with Gina Osborne wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Lisa Osborne.